After 43 years, bringing Feldman's remains home has a profound emotional implication for the Israeli public, especially today with the release of Israeli hostage Idan Alexander from Hamas in Gaza.
Mhm.
How does such a recovery impact the morale of the IDF and the Israeli public that has been involved in a war that has gone over a year and a half long now?
Well, I think it's an outstanding event that really brings hope and I would say a new spirit to the people of Israel. Obviously, the collapse of the Assad regime has spreaded some more freedom of movement for Israel and for its allies, including the US, in the Syrian territory. It's not a secret. Everybody knows about it ever since Assad been kicked off from Damascus. With the least that I can say about it, and not getting into details too much, is that we obviously utilize the current situation in Syria in order to bring more capabilities on ground that can generate this outstanding operation, and the capabilities actually to touch ground and bring the body back to Israel.
You're listening to East to West. I'm your host, Sarah Martinez Amir, and today we delve into the breakthrough story that has sent shockwaves throughout Israel: the recovery of the remains of Sergeant First Class Zvi Feldman, an IDF soldier missing since the 1982 Battle of Sultan Yacoub during the First Lebanon War. This complex special operation was carried out by the Mossad and conducted deep within Syrian territory, underscoring Israel's unwavering commitment to bringing its missing soldiers and hostages home. My guest today is Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserves Avi Kalo, former head of the Israel Defense Forces Prisoners and Missing Persons Division. Lieutenant Kalo brings a wealth of experience in intelligence, negotiation, and crisis management, having dedicated over 15 years to conflict resolution and counterterrorism efforts. Lieutenant Colonel Kalo, thank you very much for joining me today. Firstly, tell me about the significance of this case, specifically the recovery of the remains of this IDF soldier, Zvi Feldman, 43 years later.
Yeah, well, Sarah, this is a outstanding event and really historic and emotional one that really moves us all as Jews and Israelis when we're discussing the repatriation of Zvi Feldman, remains back to the Holy Land, and that's following the repatriation of Zakari Baumel, another missing personnel from this specific battle in Sultan Yacoub in the First Lebanon War in 1982. That was repatriated back in 2019, the operation that I had the privilege to lead back there into the Syrian territory, clandestine operations that finally held with the support of the Russian government. Talking specifically about such an operation or about the outstanding achievement of the intelligence community, and that's obviously not an achievement of one person, even not one organization. It's an achievement of the entire intelligence community of Israel. And it's also an achievement of the road trip that we have been taking along for so many dozens of years in order to capture this moment and bring those missing soldiers back home, whether alive or in this fortunate incident, obviously dead. But I can say that it combines for more than 40 years, actually, and it's not a cliche. It combines an array of, I would say, sensors and capabilities of the intelligence community that runs all along the times with the particular capabilities that have been held back in the 80s, which is obviously like the Stone Age in a way, and up until those days where technology meets old school intelligence, and obviously we have new capabilities, and the intelligence community runs forward for different outstanding capabilities that bring technology up front to support the intelligence operations. And that all combines together the capability first to research and locate a particular location for finding those missing personnel, and second, bringing an operational, I would say, footprint into the ground, this time in Damascus, that can showcase a particular capability that can dig and actually locate and trace and bring back the remains, obviously in a clandestine way, the remains of these missing soldiers back home, which is an outstanding achievement, and obviously probably unprecedented comparing to other intelligence communities globally, including in the US.
The mission to recover Sergeant Feldman's remains was described as complex and covert, involving non-Israeli Mossad agents operating deep inside Syria. Can you elaborate on the details and the challenges as well as the strategies involved in such an operation within enemy territory, which has been in such a whirlwind of changes since the fall of the Assad regime in December of last year?
Well, you're pointing out, Sarah, probably the most significant and substantial focal point in the process of, as we speak about this, mystery for 40 years, that needs some focal points to have some dramatic changes within. And obviously, the collapse of the Assad regime has spreaded some more freedom of movement for Israel and for its allies, including the US, in the Syrian territory. It's not a secret. Everybody knows about it ever since Assad been kicked off from Damascus. And obviously, that brings some comfort and new, I would say, platforms for such an interest of the intelligence community to deal with new areas of interest, which not only include obviously the missing in action personnel, but also other areas of interest for the intelligence community in Israel, which is weaponry, which is obviously the terrorist militias in Syria, and other, obviously, I would say, players that are trying to interfere in the region, including Turkey and other players. Anyways, going back to the operation itself, I can say that obviously the situation in Syria unfolded new reality on ground for the Israeli intelligence community in a way, by the way, that's similar to what we have done in 2019 when we repatriated Zachary Baumel, when we identified that the Russians are playing a pivotal key role in Syria back in the days of the Assad regime. And we actually used them with collaboration of President Putin and his obviously approval to actually maneuver on ground and bring some comfort to us based on the capabilities that the Russian have on ground, obviously. So with the list that I can say about it and not getting into details too much is that we obviously utilize the current situation in Syria in order to bring more capabilities on ground that can generate this outstanding operation and the capabilities actually to touch ground and bring the body back to Israel.
The agents operating on behalf of the Mossad had a cover story and had been inside Syria for several years. In the past 5 months following the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime, there were breakthroughs in the case and an opportunity to recover Feldman's remains. Officials said that the team operated under fire during the mission as they visited a graveyard several times, obtaining various findings that were sent to Israel for identification. Eventually, those findings actually matched Feldman's DNA. Talk to us about the role intelligence research and collection plays, specifically in locating missing persons like Feldman's burial site and hostages that are right now being held captive in Gaza.
Yeah, so as I said, Sarah, earlier, is the evolution of intelligence community starts with technology. And obviously, the new era that we are entering based on, for example, AI capabilities for more condensed data analysis based on big data, and even more advanced solutions and platforms for human intelligence and other aspects of intelligence brings to the table, actually, I would say, really an array of capabilities that can play a role combined in order to bring new achievements to the intelligence community, to the issue itself. Now, once we're talking about locating hostages or missing in action personnel, so obviously the collision or the diffusion between those capabilities can bring you to more advanced understandings on, for example, locations, on, for example, potentials for rescue operations, on the circumstances and the situations where those, for example, hostages in Gaza are held in. And obviously, once we can understand firmly the situation on ground, that can bring obviously an outcome for operational activities or even the diplomatic or other aspects that can generate more data, more information for us, and even gain more advantages within or through negotiation as well. So intelligence is another, I would say, key pillar part of any I would say, orchestra that's been played by the intelligence community and then by the political level as well as the government in order to gain some, I would say, achievements in the missing personnel area as well. I think the most demonstrated recent example that we do have is, for example, Operation Arnon that took place, I guess, a year ago, even a year and more ago, 14 months ago, probably, where based on intelligence, the special forces of the IDF have rescued 4 hostages from an apartment in northern Gaza. One of the most famous hostages has been released is Noah Argamani, for example, who's playing a key role in the international community, including on the US. So I think it's just another example of what we do. And I think even on the other side of the moon, talking about Zachary, about the Zvi Feldman repatriation is obviously at the end meets or similar some to the capabilities that have been presented in the other Gazian rescue operation.
After 43 years, bringing Feldman's remains home has a profound emotional implication for the Israeli public, especially with the release of Israeli hostage Idan Alexander from Hamas in Gaza the very next day. How does such a recovery impact the morale of the IDF as well as the Israeli public?
Well, I think it's an outstanding event that really brings hope and I would say a new spirit to the people of Israel. I think that even in those harsh and challenging times where, criticism been upheld against the government for not doing enough for the hostages, or even on the other hand, people are quite, I would say, tired from the war after more than 1.5 years. I think such a unique event really brings new atmosphere to the people and to the public. We can sense it through the media. We can sense it through the public discussion that's been arising in the last few days. And it's quite an, I would say, natural response of the public, as we've seen it on previous events in the last few years. Obviously, we don't have the opportunity to celebrate such an historic event every day or every year even. But obviously, that brings new, I would say, motivation to the IDF as a whole, to the warriors, to the intelligence community, to others, to keep pushing for supporting the effort for bringing the hostages back home, whether on diplomatic way or in other operational ways that are possible to keep and conduct those, I would say, efforts ahead.
Can you give us a little bit more insight into the details of this operation to bring home Zvi Feldman, to give our viewers a better understanding of just how unprecedented this operation was?
Yeah, well, I think there is a quite similarity between this operation and the Baumel's operation. Actually, they are deeply rooted and connected between them. Why is that? Because the fact that we have, during my times in the army, have generated and located the Baumel was kind of the cornerstone or the key pillar solution for founding as well Feldman, meaning that once we have found Baumel in this specific cemetery in southern Damascus, we have understood almost immediately that Feldman is just nearby there. And all along the years that have been passed ever since 2019, obviously the intelligence community held a connection or ties with the areas that were suspected where we could locate Feldman. That's first. And second of all, trying to generate a new platform, a new operative platform that could touch base in a way and bring his remains back home. And obviously, it's another example of how this, I would say, road trip of been transferred from one generation to another, continues and been built on obviously the foundations that the predecessors has put before. So I think in a way we do see a very smooth and gentle, I would say, and highly operational, I would say, standard by the intelligence community that brings forward the possibilities and actually generates new possibilities for us as a whole and for the public of Israel as well. So I'm pretty optimistic that with the conclusion and the understanding of what we have done in the Feldman case, that will bring more understanding for future operations and hopefully for new comers for us, and new, obviously, good news that we'll get from with regard to other MIAs that are still missing on Syria and in other areas in the northern arena.
You mentioned the connection between the mission to recover Baumel and Feldman's remains. Baumel was found buried in a cemetery in southern Damascus. Authorities are not providing much detail about where Feldman was located, other than that he was deep within Syrian territory. Can it be assumed that he was also in that very same cemetery in southern Damascus?
It's not far away geographically, I can say, because still are things subject to censorship here in Israel. And once things will be revealed, it will be more easier to discuss it, but openly. But I can say at least that as we have found Baumel, which was by itself an historic achievement, we understood or we increased the possibilities of where we could locate Feldman. And this actually was conveyed to the people who actually continued the journey. And those details were the baseline for the operation that we've been that revealed just recently and we've been exposed to. So it's a real privilege to be a part of this journey and obviously contribute to this event this year, actually, of bringing Feldman's back home.
How do operations like this affect Israel's strategic posture in the region, especially concerning its intelligence capabilities and commitment to its soldiers? We saw that operation in Lebanon back in September, this very successful Beeper operation.
Well, I would take it to two or three levels. The first level is the moral ground. I think that the neighbors around, not only our enemies, but also our Sunni friends in Saudi, in UAE, and other places, see the moral grounds of the Jewish people and the state of Israel that are keep pursuing for the missing in action personnel, and that's something that really outstanding and choking actually there is a shock in the Arab world when they see our efforts and how do we focus on bringing our soldiers back home, and you can see the reactions on the Arab media already about it that reflects this one. Second of all, I would say is that on the intelligence side, we do see through those operations again how the intelligence community demonstrates its superiority in the region, and actually not in the region, but also globally, which also puts to another, deep mark of question what happened in the October 7, how that fell out to this outstanding intelligence community. But again, aside of that, those ongoing operations that are, it's just another example of the outstanding, unique operations that the intelligence community in Israel is conducting, is reflecting again our superiority in the region, and that obviously create deterrence against our enemies. And on the strategic level, obviously, once you are so powerful and so prestigious and your reputation runs forward when it comes to intelligence, that can be highly fruitful when it comes to the strategic level. Obviously, the US, for example, and that's not secret that I'm telling here, and I'm deeply familiar with the intelligence community in the US, and I've been in charge for quite time for some of the relations with the US community in Washington. I can say that the US see the Israeli intelligence community as a key asset for the US within the Middle East, a broader posture or strategic here in the region. That's first. And second of all, that's another asset that Israel can actually engage with through its allies in the region and in Europe and other areas in order to engage and to gain diplomatic revenues in other fields. So at the end, it combines almost everything that relates to national security and its deep aspect when it comes to the intelligence community here in Israel.
Lieutenant Colonel Avi Kalo, thank you very much for joining me today and providing us some insight into the huge effort, both on the military and the Mossad's intelligence security apparatuses, efforts to locate and bring home those fallen soldiers, no matter how much time has come. And really, it's such an emotional day for the Israeli public as a whole. Thank you very much again for joining us.
Thank you.